quite a treat for you today. We will be meeting with a photographer who is not here with me on stage, but we will be meeting him on video. Now, the phrase "nobody plans to give up" is the title of a photo exhibition that is now currently on display at the Peace Center, the Nobel Peace Center down in Vika. And these were the words that were spoken by the chair of the board of Memorial, one of the Peace Prize winners this year, when the organization was forcibly closed down earlier this year. One of the walls at this exhibition is dedicated to the work of the Polish artist and photographer who you'll soon see behind me here. His name is Rafal Milach. He's a Magnum photographer from Poland. And he has documented for the past year demonstrations and activists, both in Poland and in several surrounding countries, showing what unites them and how they operate in the streets. The way we'll do this, he will show us some of his photographs and talk about his project, and then we'll do a short Q&A between me on stage, and there you are. Hi, Rafa.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Christopher.
Hi, we can see you. You're covering the entire wall here at the House of the Press.
Don't stress me.
So you were supposed to be here today, but you're clearly not. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I feel good. As for a second COVID in 1 month, it's pretty good.
Second in 1 month?
Yes.
Well, you look well, and you're
still COVID. Mm-hmm.
You still have your voice.
Luckily, yes. I hope I still have my brain.
Well, we'll find out. So we're looking forward to your presentation, and then I'll meet you back here shortly.
Okay. All right. So let me share the screen.
The wall is all yours.
Don't stress me again. Okay. Okay, so can you see the screen, right?
We can see it.
Okay, great. So hello again. My name is Rafal Milach, and thank you for having me. And I wish I could be there with you in person, but as I said, I strangely got COVID, so this apparently still exists, and it blocked me from coming to Oslo. So I'd like to do this very brief presentation about something that's sort of dominated my photography, and not only photography life, for the past few years, which is the Archive of Public Protests, and this is the collective that I'm part of, and I co-started back in 2019. But let me go back in time a few years earlier to late 2015-16, when right-wing populist government took over the power in Poland, and that was also the time of intensification of various protest movements protesting against various issues, from violating democratic structures, politicization of Polish judiciary system, paralysis of constitutional tribunal, violating human rights, women's rights, LGBTQ+, community rights, refugees' rights, and all these different problems that have been piling up for the past few years, not only in Poland, but let me speak, since I'm Polish, let me speak from this very much Polish perspective, but please do not consider these problems as local problems, because sadly they are quite global ones. So starting from 2016, myself and other 18 photographers from all around Poland, or people using photography, started to document all these protests, and this kind of formed this still kind of ephemeric structure of the archive public protests, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So just like a little bit of the political backdrop, like a local political backdrop that driven us to setting up this collective. So I don't know if you can hear the sound, but there is a sound. There's a video of one of the protests. So the archive brings, let me read that, brings together visual traces of social activism, grassroots initiatives, opposing not just political decisions, but also breaches of democratic norms and human rights. It's a collection of images that constitutes a warning against rising right-wing populism and discrimination in the broadest sense of the term. Xenophobia, homophobia, misogyny, and also the climate crisis, and also all different issues that we are advocating for in the streets for the past few years. But just this brief intro. So this is how we look like, and we've never met in person. Actually, I mean, as an entire collective, there's not a photoshopped image. It's just a fraction of our collective, but since we are 18 people and we are located in different places in Poland, we've never had an occasion to meet. But this is just like to see how these wonderful people look like, just briefly. So the Archive of Public Protests is a semi-open resource, semi-open archive that was created not to deliver the protest imagery, because as you probably figure out, this collective is about protest photography, and exclusively dedicated to the protest photography in Poland, but elsewhere, as Christopher mentioned, but predominantly in Poland. So this archive has not been created to supply materials to the mainstream media circulation, but it was rather created to support the protest movements in the first place, to build this visual representation of what has been going on in Poland for this past few years, and we want to invite artists, activists, academics, researchers, all these different entities that could work with this imagery and that could bounce from this imagery, and to keep up the discourse alive, to keep up the discourse about these burning issues that we're advocating for alive. So this is not a commercial activity. We're not a news agency covering protests. So I just want to make that clear. So it's something really between visual activism and, I don't know, using some sort of a press photography format, because we are not only photojournalists, we are activists, we are researchers, we are sociologists, we are from different places, different backgrounds, also different generations, and but we all share this common urge of documenting this very much historical moment that we are witnessing, that we've been witnessing for the past few years. It's a kind of a stretched moment, but still kind of important. So let me show some images. So this archive builds a certain statement, and it's not a symmetrical archive. So we always stand on the side of discriminated communities. We always side with the ones that, in confrontation with power structures, are on the lost positions. So we support women's rights movements. We support the LGBTQ plus community movements, the refugee diasporas, and so on and so forth. So this archive hasn't been built to to create certain symmetric discourse in the protest movements in general. For instance, we do document the far-right rallies that we sadly have in Poland, but we do not publish and we do not promote this sort of material, but still we have this record because we believe that having that documented, it's highly important for future and to show that this sort of ideology that we are fundamentally against shouldn't be present in the public space. So we, in that terms, I would say that we are a bit far away from photojournalistic practice. We are maybe more siding here with activists and all these communities that are really discriminated and violated by the power structures. So one of the activities that we do is the Strike newspaper, which is this kind of spontaneous publication that we started to launch in the middle of pandemic in the fall of 2020 during the pro-choice women's strike protests against introduction of a nearly total abortion ban. And the abortion ban has been sadly eventually introduced a few months from the beginning of this huge wave of protests, actually the biggest wave of protests since the collapse of communism in Poland. So that was something really strong and significant. So we thought that maybe, except for existing in an online space, we would print this newspaper that would support the protesters. So we would borrow the slogans, we would borrow the this iconography that the protesters would bring to the protests, and we would print it in this newspaper along the protesters' testimonies and our pictures of the protests. And we would go back to the streets and give away the newspaper, distributed to support visually the protesters. I'm going to show you some images of that later on. So the second issue of the pro-choice women's strike newspaper came just like a few weeks since the first issue showed up, and it turned to be quite successful. It was quite widely distributed, and the second issue was dedicated to police violence at the protests. Then we did the excuse this like super super fast mode of presentation, because I could elaborate on each of these issues for hours, but we just have like few minutes, so I'm trying to rush with this presentation. So we did the climate change issue, and then as a response for the homophobic campaign of our back then running for the office, the president and our contemporary president, and his homophobic campaign, and that was actually credited by the government. We launched the issue dedicated to LGBTQ+ community protests, and where you can read the statements of the members of this community, and that the newspaper would be distributed at the various rallies that were actually activated by this homophobic campaign. So it was kind of counterproductive from the perspective of our government. And then after the Belarusian revolution, a lot of political refugees started to come to Poland, and where they found refuge, and they started to regularly protest against Lukashenko regime, and we did an issue dedicated to the protests of this diaspora in Poland. And then another crisis happened at the Poland-Belarus border, which is still ongoing, which is related to the refugee crisis, like a humanitarian crisis, pushbacks, like numerous pushbacks of the refugees from Middle East, Afghanistan, African countries that wouldn't be allowed to enter Poland and ask for asylum, which is basically against the Geneva conventions that Poland signed. So we did an issue dedicated to this problem, and it is still an ongoing issue at the Poland-Belarus border. And the last issue is dedicated to the solidarity protests with Ukraine and anti-war protests. And I just want to show like a short video of how the newspaper is used at the protests. Okay, and some images of how this newspaper has been used at the various protests. So as I said, we would go to the protests and we would distribute the newspaper for free to all the protesters, so they could use this visual material that is part of this publication. And I have to say that this was one of the most rewarding experiences in my entire photography career, and like I would say, like a creative person career, because it turned out that I can produce something useful, something that is not used by my photography or art bubble, but is actually used by people that need that visual support. And that was really touching to see how eagerly people embraced this publication. Of course, they didn't know who's the author, and this is not about the authorship, it's not about promoting the APP brand, it's about this gesture of solidarity and this gesture of support that we could offer to the protesters. And the newspaper could be also used as a this guerrilla postering that happened quite often, advocating for different issues. And I have to say that not a single issue that we've been advocating for or protesting against has been outdated. So they're all valid problems that are still existing in our public space. And of course, in recent months, everything is sort of dominated by the war in Ukraine, by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So, but it doesn't mean that all other issues are not valid. So we've been, what I'm showing you is this like 360 degrees communication that we are trying to use. And we try to use all different platforms to present the images to keep the discourse alive. So it's not only the online presence, it's not only the Strike newspaper and our website. It's the outdoor exhibitions that we are sometimes having that help us to keep this discourse alive. And we also use the white cube spaces where we show our work, and which is kind of interesting because it's like white cube gallery as gallery space as not something that is strictly connected to the street movements, but our policy is to use all possible platforms to communicate about all these burning issues that we have to address and all these valid issues that we have to address. So here, I just want to stop here for a moment, which is the installation shot of the gallery that of the exhibition in the gallery that we shown our works, and it kind of collided with the start of the war. So the gallery, in the meantime, became a help center for refugees, and also the exhibition reformatted. So we started to deliver new materials about the anti-war and solidarity with Ukraine protests to the gallery. So it was kind of transformed in at the duration of the exhibition, and you know, this is also a good example of how various institutional structures can be used. Not by artists, but by the people. So that was also kind of in accordance with our policy of being useful for our communities and being supportive to our communities. And the last slide is, you know, I just want to show you the website, which is our main. Our main. Again. Can I activate it? Yes, but I wanted to. Platforms that we are using, that we are uploading, so maybe not on a daily basis, but quite regularly. So you can check, you can see all the pictures that we took, and you can search our archive of various critical texts, interviews, and you know, all sort of content, protest related content. So that's also quite important, not only for now, but for a certain future record of this very much intense moment that we have not only in Poland, but I believe in many places of our globe. So this is how we basically created this small community of photographers. And now I think I can stop sharing the screen if I. If only I can. Okay, stop share. Find the button. So yeah, that was kind of very formative experience to me, and you know, to work within this small community of photographers that are actually sharing the same values as myself, and being supportive, being very much careful and protective when it comes to functioning of our small community. And one more thing is this entire work is done voluntarily, and it's not an assignment work. And I think I documented something about like 200 protests. Not a single one was on assignment. So that's our contribution to to our communities that we can support with the tools that we have. So thank you for your attention, and sorry for this very quick presentation of this quite vivid and still evolving project.
Thank you very much, Rafa.
Oh my God, the screen is really big.
That was great. Your voice and your brain seem to be working perfectly. Mine does not. I said good evening when I started this, and I just checked my watch, and it's 3:30. It's just dark outside all the time. It must be it. Now, Rafa, it says in a description of you, it says that you use your camera to actively influence society. And we've had a long discussion here today with journalists from Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, talking about journalism in zones of conflict and how to sort of document what's happening, how to distinguish facts from fiction. It seems that your project is moving in sort of more in a different direction to that. Now, when you cover protests like you have, do you see a job as documenting, or in sort of functioning as an extension of the activists that you photograph?
Well, I'm not part of any activist movement, but we've been because this is sort of collaboration, and of course I have to mention that I would never compare the backdrop that, for instance, we have in Belarus when it comes to protesting and the consequences that the protesters have to bear. Like, nobody would get imprisoned in Poland. I mean, or just a few people, but they wouldn't be tortured. Like this entire protest movement thing is relatively peaceful and non-violent. It is sometimes, it gets violent, but it's mostly non-violent environment. So I wouldn't even compare that to the protests in Belarus or in Ukraine, Kherson during the occupation period. So it's a totally different thing. So I just want to stress that. And so when it comes to my engagement, as I said, first of all, I'm not on assignment. I don't work for any press or institutional entity in this particular case, and therefore I'm allowing myself to side with one fraction of the protest, but that doesn't mean that I would go and fight with police, for instance, or I would try to actively changing or interfering with either side of the protests. But when I think about this non-symmetry thing that I mentioned in the presentation, it's rather siding with certain set of values, and in that terms, I'm always with the people and with the communities that are violated, whose rights have been violated. And I think many journalists and photojournalists also do their job not because they are just assigned to do that, but because they believe in certain values, and we all believe in human rights in the end. So I believe in this certain scale or a gradation of this different attitudes within this field. So I think in this particular case, I would say that I'm well, we are always subjective, but in that terms, in this particular place, I would say that I'm extremely subjective and arbitrary when it comes to being part of this movement. Because this is also about myself. This is about my families. This is about my friends whose rights are violated. And I would always side with my community against the system if the system is oppressive one.
Just to sort of elaborate on that, we see protest movements all the time in many places. One that happened just a few weeks ago was in a very unusual place in China. And there's an expression in Chinese where they talk about the wisdom of the masses, that even in an authoritarian dictatorship, once things sort of get to a certain point, the population will sort of react spontaneously and form mass movements like the one we saw, although it died out quite quickly. Do you believe that there is something to that? There's a universality to how masses are formed and the function they can have in society?
Absolutely. I mean, when you go out to the streets, I mean, this is like it means that you reach a certain critical moment, or your community or your society has reached this critical moment, and there's also something magnetic about it, and it's like you want to be part of it. And I mean, if you're signing up with the values of the protesters, of course, but I think especially today, this incredible sense of belonging to a certain community, it's also quite an important factor, that you just kind of awaking this sense of agency. And when you and we're always with this question: what do the protests change actually? And sometimes they do. And the protest is just like one fraction of many different, it's like a kind of a chain of events or a constellation of events that is actually affecting the reality. Look at Iran, and this is amazing. There's no morality police anymore because of these 2 months long protests, right? And this is great. Well, at least let's see how it's going to be. But this is the direct effect of a protesting crowd and very brutally pacified, by the way. And so it's like, when I think about me as a photographer or as a, as a collective of photographers, so what kind of agency do we have? And then I think, as an isolated action, we do not have any agency, but we do have an agency when we think about bigger coalition of events and different movements and different actions that can lead to the change. I believe so, and I experience so even in my local environment. So it's like, this being, I'm not a news photographer. I've never been a news photographer, and I am always too slow. I'm always photographing the back of my experienced photojournalistic friends when it comes to documenting some events. But still, being in the space kind of restored my trust in the agency of photography. And I'm not naive, and it's not that photography changes everything, but it can contribute to the change, and this is significant difference, and this is also a significant change in my perception of this medium.
All right. Rafal Milach, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for giving us a taste of some of your work. And of course, anyone who wants to see more of it can head down to the Nobel Peace Center and look at the exhibition there. Hope you feel better soon, and thank you so much for coming tonight, or today, sorry.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving a platform and giving a space to discuss all these important issues. And please stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good continuation of the evening. And thank you for having me.
All right, thanks. Take care.